If you're running your teams using flow metrics, a really big thing you care about is aging work. And you might be thinking, what does that have to do with your SLE cycle time target? Well, they go hand in hand because you can do some really great stuff with your cycle time target values and that probability when you start thinking about how long work has been in progress. Basically, how long something has been aging. So thinking about an SLE that looks like this, so 85% of our work completes in 18 days or less, 50% completes in 10 days or less. That gives you a range. How long is it going to take, and what's your degree of confidence for that duration? So once you start work, that work starts aging. The cycle time clock, the meter, has started running. And you might be thinking, who cares? Like, it's aging work, it's been in progress for a while, big deal. The problem is that the longer that work has been in progress, the riskier it actually gets. So one of the things you really want to pay attention to, that you want to monitor as you're delivering your work, is things that have been aging, things that have been in progress for a long time, which is another way of saying monitor your delivery for at-risk work. So let's say we have an SLE that says 85% of our work is done in 8 days or less. That automatically means that 15% of our work will not be done in 8 days or less. 15% of our work will take longer than 8 days. And once it goes past that 8-day mark, it gets kind of scary because it's really hard to predict how long it's going to take because, 15% is not a lot. So it's rare that something goes beyond 8 days, but once it gets into that, it's pretty hard to predict when it's going to be completed. So that gets us into a whole bunch of different risks, like risk of not delivering, risk of building the wrong thing, risk of not getting feedback fast enough, the risk of annoying the customer, and on and on and on. So thinking of an SLE that looks like this, we've got an 85% mark and a 50% mark. Well, why am I giving you two values? And really, what's so special about that 50% mark? When it hits the 50% mark, you can start saying a bunch of things. So in this case, where our 50% target says that it's going to be done in 10 days or less, well, in this case, a piece of work has already hit 10 days. So it's 10 days and counting. And that means that it's bigger than half of our typical items. Let me let that sink in for a second. This thing is bigger than half of the items that we typically work on. And that means that it's got an increased probability of blowing past that 85% mark. If the chance of exceeding the 85% mark is actually 15%, well, if we've already made it to the halfway mark, that means that there's actually a 30% chance now that it's going to exceed that 85% SLE. So that's something close to 1 in 3 chance that this is going to be one of the 15% that just blows up our cycle time targets. So what do you actually do about this? Do we panic? No, probably not. I probably wouldn't be getting super worried at the 50% mark, but I would start paying extra attention to this item. I'd at least be asking some questions about it. Is it blocked? Are we waiting on someone or something for this thing to get completed or to proceed? Is it simply taking a long time? Was this thing more complex than we expected it to be? In which case, maybe we consider adding more people. Or maybe the team drops everything else they're working on and swarms on this one item to drive it to done faster. Is it bigger than we expect? Was it just more work? Maybe it's not more complicated. Maybe it's just tedious. At this point, maybe we break it into smaller pieces. Or we consider cutting scope and we just don't do as much of it so we can call it done, ship it, make it feedbackable, get feedback on it, make our customers happy, whatever. But whatever we do, we should start paying attention to this item and asking questions about why is it already bigger than 50% of the things we do. So let's say that you have that meeting and you think about it and you ask those questions and you just, you keep going. So fast forward a few more days and it still is not done. So let's say you're at day 12. What's the probability of exceeding that 85% mark and becoming one of those 15% items? Using that 50%, 85% SLE, if the current age is 10 days, so the cycle time is already up to 10 days, the escape probability, the probability that it escapes into that 15% zone, is 30%. Now, we've gone a few more days and we're at day 12, and if you look at the math that I've got inside the Excel spreadsheet from the demo, our 68th percentile is 12 days. So if we're at 12 days, we're at 68%. that implies that we've got an escape probability of 47%. That's darn close to a coin toss being 50-50. So the risk of this thing becoming one of those 15%ers is getting really high. If it makes it to 18 days and it hasn't been completed yet, well, now the escape probability is 100% because it has escaped our upper boundary of our SLE. So as work ages, the risk of exceeding your SLE increases. So pro tip, review your aging work frequently. In your daily team meeting, hopefully you're having a daily team meeting, something like a daily scrum, review your aging work. Just take a look at what's in progress and what's been in progress for a while. And review those things, especially the ones that have been in progress for an exceptionally long while. These things are your at-risk items, the at-risk items for blowing your SLE. And also, it goes without saying, keep reviewing the items that have already gone past the upper boundary of your SLE. Another tip, review your cycle time target, your SLE, frequently. So on a regular basis, maybe every 2 weeks, every month, in your sprint retrospective, if you're doing those things, review your cycle time target and make sure that it still makes sense. Go rerun the math and get an updated value because you actually might be improving. Your cycle time target might actually be going down. Your SLE might actually be going down. You might be delivering faster. So look for trends and try to see if they tell you any story about what's going on in your team. And I'd probably be continually looking for opportunities to improve your average cycle time, to decrease your SLE, to decrease your cycle time target. And some of the things you might do to improve that would be DevOps practices or thinking of new ways to swarm on the work or to organize the work, new testing practices, new deployment practices, new patterns of how you involve your stakeholders into getting feedback. These are all opportunities that you can use to improve your cycle time. But remember, your SLE, your cycle time target, is not a guarantee. There is no guarantee that it's going to make it inside that 85% zone. Some of it is going to escape. So be ready for it and be watching your aging work because your aging work is a gigantic source of risk.